So today's video won't be as structured as my normal tutorials, but today we're making Isabelle's vest, and unfortunately I did not have time to prototype the top here. I actually haven't made a vest before, and I haven't even really made a cardigan yet. So this was like the first one I've done, and it was very challenging with, all of the color changing and everything. I tried to be as instructional as I could, but also this is just kind of me showing the process of making this. There's definitely a lot of mistakes that I made on this, so as we go through each section, I will probably insert a little thing before it that will tell you what I would have done differently now that I know how to do it. I will say that blocking this piece helped so much. Before I blocked it, it was very, very stiff, and especially in my arms here, it was just really awkward. But I used a steamer to block this and it helped a lot. So highly recommend doing that. So I apologize if this tutorial is a little bit messy, and I will say that this is not beginner friendly. So I do show you how to seam all the pieces together, but I don't show you how to sew the buttons on and how to sew these little bits on here, mainly because I just ran out of time. And I don't show you how to make this I-cord in this video, but I do have a video showing you how to make a half I-cord. It's a half I-cord double chain, it's called. I will have a link to that tutorial in the description. This was all a very, very long process, so I'm sorry I couldn't show everything. I literally finished this vest the night before I needed it, and then I also had to make some modifications today because I'm going to a Halloween event actually after I'm done filming. So it was very, very close. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with your friends. I've made it a goal to try to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so any help with that would be appreciated. With that all out of the way, I hope you all enjoy the tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. The really tricky part about this project was I wanted to find a brand of yarn that had all of the green colors I needed, and that was actually really tricky because, it needed to be at least kind of close to Isabelle's greens. I really wanted it to be the same brand because I didn't want there to be too many differences between the weight or anything like that. Luckily, I found this yarn from crochet and they had the 4 green colors, and yeah, they worked pretty well. This ribbing is definitely a bit darker than what Isabelle's would be, but I still think it works really well, and I really like how they all turned out. So on Isabelle's vest, on the bottom, there is an additional 2 green colors. There's another gingham pattern on the bottom of her vest. I didn't bother with that because I didn't want to spend all of the extra money buying an additional 2 skeins, and also it would have been too hard to find another 2 colors. I just kind of ignored that, and I just did the ribbing on the bottom with the same green color. But I honestly think that looks better, so I am happy with that anyways, and it is close enough to Isabelle's vest. On my back panel, I do wish I had made it wider. This part especially came in a little too short for my liking. I do wish it was out wider. So I wish I had overall made the panel maybe 2 squares wider, and then this part probably wouldn't have looked as weird. I do think I still would have come in 2 squares. I think that worked out nicely. I cannot tell you how much I regret taking out that 1 square in the beginning. I also wish I had started with the front panels instead of the back panel. I think that would have helped figure out the sizing a little bit better. I also wish I had made this more cropped, and that's just a personal preference, but I thought it was coming out a lot shorter than it actually came out to be. I'm measuring the back panel of the vest that I already have. It is really close to 16.5. I'm just going to round up to 16.5 because that's just easier for me. You probably don't have an existing Isabelle vest like I do to measure off of, but you could measure a cardigan that you like the fit of, or if you have another vest, you could lay that flat and measure that. I always like to measure clothes that I already have and that I like the fit of because I just find it easier to figure out that way. So yeah, measure your back panel because this is going to be the width that we are going to aim for with our chain. We need to do a little swatch test just to figure out how many stitches our squares are going to be to equal what we want. So if I look at the squares on the vest that I have already, they are 1 inch by 1 inch. So that's going to be the goal for my squares. Now you may look at Isabelle and, you see that she doesn't have really a lot of squares on her vest, but that is because Isabelle is very tiny. So if we were to make these a lot bigger so we had less like she did, I just don't think it would look as good. So I am going to be making my squares small because we need to scale it to our size. So I need to figure out how many stitches equal 1 inch for my measurements. I'm just going to do a few chains here, and I'm going to remove my hook and see what this ends up being. So 4 chains for me seems pretty good, but I am going to do some single crochets just to make sure. So I'm going to chain 1 for a turning chain, and then I'm going to make some single crochets into the chains here. Now, this doesn't really matter, but I might as well teach you this now because we're going to be doing this anyways. But if we're looking at our chain here, we've got our 2 V's in front. And then if we turn the chain around, you'll see a bump back here. This is referred to as the back bump. And on row 1, we are going to be working into that back bump. So I'm skipping 1 chain, and in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to make my single crochets for my swatch. Now another thing I'm going to show you here is the way that I'm going to be doing my single crochets is I'm going to do a yarn under and then I'm going to do a yarn over. You can do any combination that you would like for your single crochets. That's just personally what I prefer. So I'm going to yarn under. So I'm bringing the yarn under my hook, bring it up, 2 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to yarn over, bring that through the 2 loops. And so I'm just going to make those single crochets in each stitch. Okay, so that looks good, and then I'm going to measure it. Yeah, we are still good. It is 1 inch. So that was it. As you see, making the little swatch was very simple. So just keep making your little swatch until you figure out how many stitches you want in your square for it to equal the length that you want. It is important to measure it and make sure it's correct because we're going to be using that to figure out our measurements. I played with my swatch just a little bit more because I wanted to see how the stitches were going to look. And for me, this is too holy. So I am actually going to lower my hook size down. I'm going to go down a full hook size. So I'm going to try 4.5. And I need to keep measuring this to see if it equals 1 inch. If you'd like, you can make some rows if you want to see how it looks for yours as well. All you do to make more rows is you just chain 1 and then you turn. And in each stitch on the top, there should be 4 or however many stitches you had for yours. You'll just make single crochets in each stitch across. And then when you get to the other side, you just chain 1, turn, and repeat. Okay, so here's my little swatch. It is very close to 1 inch. I lay it down here. Obviously, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but as long as it is really close, which mine is, I ended up sizing down to a 4.0 mm hook. So this is the size of what my little squares are going to look like. So now that I know the size of my squares, I know that mine are 4 stitches. Now I can use that to figure out what length of chain I need in the beginning. So my goal width was 8.5, but I'm going to round mine up to 9. You can round up or down, whatever you want to do. I don't mind mine being like a bit of a looser fit. So I'm going to go up to 9. That way I don't have one square that's kind of like half of a square. I just want to keep it really simple. So since I'm aiming for 9 inches and each of my squares are 1 inch, I just times 4 times 9 and that gives me 36. So I want to try to do 36 stitches for my chain. When you're working with a gingham pattern, you're typically going to be working with 3 colors. Now there is one color that is basically like your main color. One of these colors of the 3 is going to be on every row, whereas 2 of the other colors are going to be every other row. So if you're not making the Isabelle vest, then you'll just want to decide what you want your main color to be. So for Isabelle's vest, the main color is the medium green. Medium green is on every row, whereas the light and the dark green are every other row. So this medium green, or whatever color you chose, is going to be what you're going to start with, and this is what you're going to make your foundation chain with. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a slip knot, and I'm going to create chains until I have 36. Okay, so I kept saying 9 inches. I'm not sure where I got that number from, but my goal width was 16.5 inches, and I rounded it up so that it's 17 inches. So I ended up making 68 chains because you just take how many inches your goal was, and then times that times the number of stitches that your square is. And obviously that math will change if you're doing 2-inch squares or anything different than 1 inch. So now I'm taking my chain and I'm putting it against my measuring tape. And so as you can see here, mine is 17 inches. And I am not stretching my chain. I'm just holding it straight. I'm not stretching it out like this. This isn't going to be a very stretchy project because we are going to be carrying our yarn, which I will show you when we get there. But since it's not going to be very stretchy, don't really stretch this out much. Just make it straight. And as you can see, mine's not perfect because it, depends on your tension and everything when you're chaining. But since mine is a little over 17, it's actually kind of more 17.5. I actually think I am going to undo just a couple of stitches because I just want it to be a little bit closer to that 16.5 that I originally was going for. So all you need to do is, if you do this, make sure you only subtract the stitches that your square is. So I want to take off 4. I don't want to take off 2 or anything like that. Just take off 1 square. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now my total of chains is 64. Okay, so I'm doing this again, and now I am right at that 16.5 mark. I definitely don't want to go any lower than that. I could probably sit here and debate all day if I want to do 16.5 or if I want to do a little over 17. But I think I'm just going to stick with the 16.5 because I know that my vest that is 16.5 fits me well. The next decision you want to make is which color you're going to start with first for your second color. It doesn't really matter, but I am going to start with the light green for my row 1. So we're going to be working with 2 skeins of yarn, and I will show you how to keep this kind of organized here. Usually when I'm working with my skeins, I have them hanging up on my yarn genie. And so usually I'm working with the outside yarn. But on my extra ones, I'm going to be working with the inside yarn just to keep it a little bit easier because this is just going to be sitting here like this. And there's many ways to organize your yarn when you're working with multiple colors. Another option you can do is you can kind of wrap these around some bobbins, but I wouldn't really recommend that for this one only because we are going to be carrying our yarn throughout this whole project. First thing I want you to do is chain 1 because this is going to be our turning chain. And just as a reminder, and I talked about this in the swatch section, we are going to be starting in the second chain from the hook, and we're going to be working into the back bumps. So turn this around, skip the first chain that's closest to your hook, and then work a single crochet into the second chain. Now, something I'm going to do before I create the single crochet is I'm going to add in my other color. Through this entire pattern, I'm going to be carrying my yarn. This is going to keep the back really neat, and it's going to continuously weave in the ends as we go. You want to decide what you want to do from the very beginning, because if we're going to be carrying our yarn, then we do want to carry it through the entire thing, because if we carry it in some spots and then don't carry it in other spots, then there's going to be inconsistency in the thickness of your stitches. I'm going to slide the yarn over my hook right here. This is going to be a little tricky at first when you're doing your first stitch. Now I'm going to grab my yarn, but hold this over the back of your hook, and then I'm going to yarn under and bring up my loop and make my single crochet. And now this is attached in here, and you can pull this and adjust how much extra yarn you have here. You do want to leave a little bit extra here because we do need to weave in this end. Now, if you are a beginner, so that you don't get confused by the chain one, you may want to mark your first single crochet. That way you know exactly where it is. And we're going to, again, continue to carry this yarn with us. So let's make our second single crochet. And we're keeping our yarn in the back in the next row that is going to change, because right now we're keeping it on the wrong side of our work. And you can also pull this every so often to kind of hide it a little bit better. So I have made 3 stitches. On the last stitch, it's going to be a little bit different, or whatever your last number is. What you're going to do on the last stitch before we change colors is we're going to insert, yarn over, and bring up our loop, but we're not going to finish our stitch. Instead, I want you to drop the main color. So grab your next color. If you need to tighten this loop, if it gets real loose, you can just pull on it back here and you can kind of hold it in place. And then yarn over and complete that stitch. As you can see, it's still a dark green, but now our color is changed to the next color. So again, this time we're just swapping. We're gonna hold the dark green in the back. So insert into the back bump and keep the dark green over your hook. And then do your stitches with the light green. Now I've done 3 with the light green, so we're gonna do the same thing. So insert into the next stitch, yarn over, and then we're gonna grab the next color because we're going to complete it, and then secure your yarn here. We're gonna complete it with the next color. And so you're just going to do this same exact thing, repeating this all the way down. And don't forget that I have bookmarks, so if you need to watch this again, you can go back and watch this part. And I will see you at the end of row 1. Okay, I am at the end of row 1, and sometimes throughout your row, you are going to need to detangle your yarn. I usually do this about twice a row, but it just really depends. And I'm just sliding my skein around the one that's loose. And that's it. You just kind of take the skein and take it around to untangle. Now for my last stitch of row 1, I am still carrying the other color with me, but I'm actually completing this with this light green color. Because we are making a square, we want to have equal amount of rows of this same color. So we're not going to be switching colors and alternating yet. We're still going to be continuing to do this one pattern for me for 4 rows. And whatever your stitches are, that's how many rows you're going to do. So I'm sticking with this color, and I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work. Okay, so now we have the wrong side of the work facing us, and the right side is over here. So we need to hide our yarn a little bit differently. So I'm grabbing the other color because I want to keep it behind. It's always a little bit tricky on the very first stitch, but you're just going to kind of take this up and kind of wrap it around so that it's sitting behind your stitches on the back. Put your hook in. And when you're inserting, you're going under that color and then through your stitch. You want to keep this loop on the back side. Make your single crochet. And then just keep it in the back. Okay, now we're going to finish this color. So we're going to do half. So I'm grabbing the next color. I'm going to tighten this loop a little bit if it's loose, and I'm gonna pull this back like this because I want it to be in the back. And then I'm going to finish that color. Now keeping this in the back, you're gonna insert your hook and the yarn's gonna be over it like this. It's kind of crossing over. And now we're gonna continue with our next color. And then again, drop this, grab your next color, and then I like to pull this behind, finish the color. And then again, I'm pulling this back, keeping it on the wrong side of the work. That way, the front side stays nice and neat. So you're going to continue on and you're gonna do the same exact thing for however many rows you need to. So for me, it's 4 in total. And then I'm gonna show you what to do to begin round 3. It's just slightly different because then the yarn is gonna be in the back. It's a little bit easier actually. So go ahead and complete this row and I'll see you on the next one. I'm at the end of row 2 now. So I did the last stitch with the same color because again, we're continuing this color for a few rows. So I'm not going to be changing because I want it to be stacked on top of each other. So you're just going to chain 1 and turn. So now we have the right side facing us again. All you do on this row is you're just going to keep your yarn behind, just like we did on row 1. And then when I'm on my last stitch, I'm going to keep this yarn back here and switch to the other color. And we'll just repeat doing the same exact thing that we did on row 1. I'm gonna go ahead and complete row 3 and 4. You've already seen how to do row 2, and row 4 will be exactly the same as row 2. I will see you when I am done with row 4, and then I'm going to show you how to change to the next pattern color. Okay, I am now on row 4 and I am at my last square. And after this row, we are going to be switching to the next color pattern, which is going to be the medium green and the dark green. So because of that, I want to, at this point, when I finish the last color of the light green, I want to fasten off the light green and attach the dark green because that's just going to make it a little bit easier when we go to start the next row. Because when we start row 5, we are going to be starting with dark green instead of this medium green. So I'm going to be placing the light green behind for right now, and then we're going to weave this in later, or you could also weave it in now if you want to take care of all of that as you're working. Just in case for a moment, I am going to leave the light green attached. I'm going to put it out of the way here. Now I'm grabbing the dark green. I'm on the wrong side right now, so I'm going to slide my green over and I'm going to bring my hook underneath, and I have the dark green resting over, and then I'm going to make my single crochet. And I want this tail to be a little bit longer so I can weave it in properly later. That is plenty. And I'm just going to continue making this color here. And then on the last stitch, we're going to switch to the dark green. And this makes it nice and easy to do it the block before, especially when you're working on this side. Just switch to this color really easily for the next row. So just remember that when you do switch your pattern, you always want to keep this medium green on a different square. So obviously, if we were to continue with the medium green, then it would be 8 stitches high instead of 4. So the medium green needs to switch to being on top of the other color. And that's why we're switching to the dark green now. So now we're just going to continue as normal and chain 1. And then you're just going to work with the new color and make sure, as always, that we're floating up the previous color. And now I'm going to switch back to this green. And now I'm carrying the dark green in the back. Now, if you'd like, for a few stitches, you can carry the additional tail with you. I'm just gonna carry one because I'm already carrying this color anyways. So I'm just going to carry that tail with me. And that way I don't have to weave in that end. There we go. So now this is how the pattern is looking. And I am going to flip this over and I'm gonna fasten off the light green. And then, like I said, you could either leave your end here for now, or you can, weave it in later, or you can weave it in now. Just make sure you're weaving it in on the wrong side. So we're going to continue and we're just going to do the exact same thing. You're doing 4 rows in this pattern now, and then you'll switch back to this pattern. And you'll just keep alternating every 4 rows or however many stitches your rows are. And you have now seen how to handle color changing here and how to turn each row. I am going to make my vest a slightly more cropped than the one that I bought previously. The next measurement is we're going to be, sorry, it's a little hard to show here, but here's the bottom of the vest. And then you want to go up to here because then we're going to be changing what we're doing when we get up here. So measure from here to the bottom if you have a vest that you can measure, or if you have a cardigan or something, to measure from here. So this top right here, from here to here is about 9.5 inches, but I want to make mine, like I said, slightly more cropped than this one. So I'm going to take off an inch and aim for somewhere around 8.5. So I'm going to continue my rows until I reach about 8.5, and I will come back and show you how many rows I did. So the way I was working my stitches, right now this is my right side. This is how my wrong side looks. Now, personally, I think that the wrong side looks way better than the right side. And that's just because of the way that the stitches lay, the way that the single crochet stitches lay on top of each other when you're turning your rows. On this side, it always kind of looks like this. So if you turn it to the wrong side, you can kind of see this line here that forms between the 2 stitches. So on the wrong side, it's lining up really nicely because I'm doing 4 high. It's lining up really nicely. So where like there's a line and then there's a line here. Whereas on this side, it's a little bit messier because on this line, you have a mix of both colors. Now, you might like that look. I personally, though, I'm kind of a perfectionist and I like this way more. I was debating on just continuing, because honestly, the wrong side doesn't look too bad. But there is like some obvious parts where you can tell this was the wrong side. Before I get too far, because I know how I am, I'm just gonna redo this. I'm gonna work this in reverse. So in the first row, and this might not make sense to you yet, but in the first row, since we're carrying yarn throughout this whole project, I have the yarn in the back in the first row. And then on row 2, the yarn is in the front because that is the wrong side. I'm going to reverse it. So I am going to undo this. I mean, I haven't gotten too far, luckily. But yeah, I don't want to redo the tutorial. I'm really sorry about that because it does take a lot of time to show how to do all of these rows. Now, if your squares are different heights than mine, like if yours are 3, this isn't going to affect you. But if you're working an even number, like I am, it will look like this on the right side. But if you're working an uneven number, then it won't matter. So if you're working an even number, just keep that in mind. And maybe you like this side and that's totally fine and you can follow it just like that. But yeah, I am gonna undo this. I'm gonna show you real quick on row 1 how I'm keeping it in front, because that's probably the hardest part is when you're working in the foundation chain. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly show you what this looks like with what I mentioned before. If you're gonna make row 1 your wrong side, I just wanna show you how you're gonna connect that. Okay, so just like before, I'm gonna skip the chain one and I'm working into the second chain's back bump. And we want to bring this yarn with us. But we want it to be in front instead of in the back. Now this is a lot trickier the way we're doing it now. While my hook is inserted into the stitch, I'm gonna lay this piece over. And then I'm gonna bring up my single crochet, yarn over and pull through. I wanna leave a little bit of a tail to weave this in. I'm gonna kind of leave this in the front here, so it's there before I'm inserting into the back bump, whereas if this was the other way, it's in the back. I'm just kind of moving it into the front best I can. This row is going to be really awkward, but that's okay. And this tail is hanging out of the wrong side, but when I'm finished, I'm going to weave it in to come out this way, so it won't be like that. So again, you're just kind of leaving the yarn tail in front instead of the back. And now I'm where I'm going to be changing color. So I'm going to bring this up, but I'm not going to finish it with this color. I'm going to switch to this color. And I'm keeping this yarn tail in the front. Finish that. And then in the next back bump, I'm still pulling the tail in front. And I'm really sorry I'm changing that. I didn't even think about that when I started because since I was doing an even amount of stitches, it's just gonna look so much better, in my opinion. But, of course, you don't have to do it this way. I am just a perfectionist, so I wanted to do it this way instead. So just like that. I really hope that makes sense. I'm so sorry that I had to change that and I don't have time to refilm this right now. When you are done with the bottom half of the back panel, we're gonna now do something just a little bit different because we need to come in for the armholes. Now this has a nice slant, which I do like. I'm just gonna keep it really simple and I'm not going to do a slant. I'm just gonna come in. I'll show you here. So I'm at my last stitch for that before I want to do my armholes. I'm just going to chain one and fasten this off. So for the armholes, and hopefully, this is kind of one of those points where I'm like, I really hope I don't make the wrong decision. I'm gonna go in 2 blocks. So I'm gonna start my row here and then go until here, and we're just gonna leave 2 blocks off. You could go through until like a half block if you wanted to, but I really want mine to just be really lined up. I don't want any like half squares, so I'm just going to hope that 2 squares is okay. So for me, that's about 2 inches. So that's gonna give me a 4-inch opening for my armhole. So I really hope that's going to be okay. We are going to put a small border around the armhole, but I think at least at this point, I'm probably just going to do like a single crochet border around the armhole. It might be wise if I just started like halfway into this square. I'm gonna just try the 2 squares and hope that it goes okay. I might regret everything, but that's just kind of how it goes when you don't make a prototype first. I put a slip knot on my hook and I'm bringing in my new color and I have the tail on the wrong side. I'm going to chain 1 and I'm gonna make my first single crochet and I'm keeping the tail on the wrong side. And now I'm gonna slide my main color back in and I'm going to work over that so that I can quickly switch to it. And there we go. We're just continuing as normal. The only difference is I cut off my yarn and I started 2 squares in, and then I'm going to crochet until here. And it's just going to be just like it normally is. We're just stopping here instead of going the whole way. And then from there, you'll just crochet from there to there, back and forth, until you reach your desired length. And this should go up to your shoulders. I'm about to show you how to do the shoulders, the top here. and I definitely did mine too large. Also, I'm actually not sure in the filming process, I'm not sure how many squares I had done, what I showed in the video, but I ended up adding 2 rows here of the next color, and then this ended up creating one full square because then I did the 2 rows here on the front panel, and this will make sense in a second when I show you. But I definitely made my shoulders way too big. I would honestly just take out this square. And I know it would have made this not look as perfect, like pattern-wise, because it would have had 2 squares next to each other, but I think it would have looked fine on top of the shoulder there. And yeah, this is just way, way too big. The armhole just fits me really awkward. Doing the blocking at the end really helped, but it's still a little bit of an awkward fit there. So I'm finished with this part of my back panel. I did 7 rows in total, and it's about 6.5 inches in length. After I did that, I then made the part for the shoulder here. So you want to decide how far you want to come in. This will be your neck hole here. Mine is about 2.5 inches wide and about 1.5 inches long. And the way you want to think about it is this is just the first half of it, and then we'll add the other half when we do the front panel. So I did 1 square, and then I did a half of a square, and then I'll finish the other half of the square when I do the front panel. So this will end up being the middle seam that is right on top of your shoulder. Now we are going to create our front panels. My front panels are definitely not wide enough. Even though I did go back and redo it once, I still think it could have been maybe a square or 2 wider. So this is the start of my left panel here, and when you have the vest on, this is what is on the left side. So right now, if we're looking at it like this, it's on the right side, but I'm going to refer to this as the left panel. So you want to decide how wide you want your panels to be. My panel is about 6.5 inches wide, and it is 7 squares in width. So I just counted over, and then I have 2 squares left in the middle here, and I'm going to be having a pretty wide ribbing going through the middle. So that is something to account for as well. So after you decide how wide you want your front panels to be, how many squares you want it to be, you just take how many squares. So for me, I did 7 squares and I just times it times 4, and then I added a chain just like we did on the back panel. Now for the left panel, it's going to be just like the back panel. You're going to start with the main color, and then you start with the main color here, and then you go to the light color. You really want to be paying attention to your pattern and thinking about that when you're making your panels, because when you make your panels, you want them to line up with the colors on this side so that when we sew them together, it's very seamless. So as you can see, this all matches up on the other side. So we'll have to do the other panel a little bit differently, and I will show you that when I get to do that one. So after you figure out how many squares you want, you'll start to work those, and you're going to do the same exact amount that you did on the back panel until you get to this point here. So I had to redo my front panel because I just felt like it wasn't wide enough. My front panel is now about 7.5 inches wide. I just added an extra row of squares, and in doing that, I did realize something when I was explaining your front panels and how to start your foundation chain. On the last front panel I did, it just so happened that I ended on the same color that I started with, the main color. But on this one, now that I had an extra square, I actually started with the light green, and I just wanted to show you how I switched to starting with the light green first. I'm just going to show you an example with a few chains here. So say this is the end of your foundation chain. I have to chain one more for the turning chain, but I'm not going to do that. So instead, I'm just going to chain the exact number. And then to start with the next color, I'm just going to add a slip knot onto this. I'm going to reinsert my hook, and I'm going to pull the slip knot through, and you can tighten this. So I'm counting this as the turning chain instead of chaining an extra one. And this is very finicky, but I'm going to insert into the first stitch then, and I'm going to take my tails with me. And I would just make my first single crochet. So then I would just start to work with this color as my first color. And that is how you do that if you have to start with a different color like I did. After you get to that point, we want to again leave 2 squares out. So you may need to detach your yarn just depending on where you left off on this panel. Another thing that you want to keep in mind if you do have to detach, pay attention to what side you left off on when you get to the end of this here. So whatever row you ended with, so for me, I ended on the right side. So that means I would want to start the next part on the wrong side. And that's just going to keep this all looking really seamless. And we just want it to really blend in with each other here. After you reattach and you take these 2 squares away, you just want to do a couple of rows of just normal stitches here. Mine is about 2 inches in length. I am back with my new front panel here that I remade. And now we are going to start our decreasing. And Isabelle's neckline is a lot more swooped. It's kind of straight for a bit, and then it kind of curves up a little. So we definitely don't want this to look like a V-neck. I've redone this neckline a few times now, trying to figure out how I want to do it. So hopefully this works out. But what we are going to do is we're going to leave off 2 squares on this side now, because for a while the neckline is pretty straight, and then we will start to do some decreases here so it'll come up like this. So if you left off on this side like I did, you will have to fasten off and cut your yarn. If you left off on this side, then you can start over here. So our decreases are going to be on this side on the left panel. Just like we did down here, make sure that you look at what side you left off on, and then you're going to start on the other side. For me, it's the same, so I am going to be starting on the wrong side. I'm starting right here, so I'm going to be starting with my main color first. I'm also going to be bringing in my other color so that I can easily switch to it. For the first row, I'm just going to work normal single crochets across. I'm not going to be decreasing in the first row. So just do normal single crochets until here. Then you're going to do the next row and you're going to stop before you get to your last square. I am back around now and I want to start to do my first decrease. We are going to decrease twice in this square, so we're going to take this from 4 stitches down to 2. When you decrease, you're turning 2 stitches into 1. So to do our first decrease, insert into the next stitch. And then just act as if you are making a single crochet, but don't finish it. Instead, go into the next stitch and then do a single crochet. You'll have 3 loops and then just complete it like you normally would. Now I'm going to do my next decrease. Now I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. Now I'm going to be decreasing again, so I'm going to turn these 2 stitches into 1. And when I have my 3 loops, I'm now going to switch to the next color. And then I'm just going to start the next color as normal. So now continue again to work this as normal, and then you'll turn and then you'll work this until you get to the end of this square here, and we have this last stitch left. I am back around and I have 2 stitches remaining, one in this dark green color and one in our main color. So I'm going to do a decrease, but also I'm going to be starting the next row. So I am going to be switching to, so you'll switch to whatever color you have next. For me, that's going to be the main color. So now I will start the next row, and you're going to do this same decreasing until you get to the length that we did for our shoulder. So for me, it's 2.5 squares. So I will get to 2.5 on my next row. So on my next row, I will just stop my decreasing when I have 2 stitches left of this color. And then I will just continue to crochet into those 2 stitches because I will have 2.5 squares for a few rows. You're going to do that until you reach the same length that you did on your back panel. So it's up to here. And then you're going to do your shoulder, and you'll do the same amount of rows that you did for your shoulder on the back panel. And just as a reminder for what we did for the decreasing, in the first row, we didn't do any decreases. In the second row, we went from 4 stitches to 2, so we did 2 decreases. In the next row, we took it from 2 to 1, so then we had 1 stitch left. And then in the last row that I just showed you, we completely got rid of that color and just finished with our last square. So go ahead and repeat that until you need to, and then you'll just crochet however many squares you have left. I've started my right panel, and all you're going to do is just mirror what you did on the left panel. So I've already worked my rows up until here, and then I worked these 2 regular squares with leaving these 2 out. And then we're just going to do our decreasing just like we did on the other panel, and we're going to decrease until it equals the same amount as our shoulder. And then after you're decreasing and you get to how many squares you needed, which for me was 2.5, you then just work that to equal your back panel, and then you work your additional rows for your shoulder. I started working my first decrease square right here, and again, I'm just doing the same exact thing. And I am decreasing on this side for this panel. And I'm just going to do the exact same decrease pattern where I worked a row of normal stitches, and then I did 2 decreases, and then I do 1 decrease, and then I do 1 more decrease. And that is all you do for the front panels. When you are done with your front panels, make sure you leave a tail for sewing. Now we're going to begin seaming our pieces together. I'm going to start with the side, and you want to make sure that your wrong side is facing you. So this is the wrong side. And then on the back panel, this is the wrong side right here. So both of the right sides of each panel are facing together, and then the wrong sides are facing you. So I'm just going to double the length of what I'm sewing, and then I'm also going to add a little bit extra. I'm using the main color to sew these pieces together. We are just going to be doing the whip stitch. If you'd like, you can go ahead and do what I did and use stitch markers just to connect the top and the bottom, just so that they are nice and secure and lined up. For the sides, for the whip stitch, we do not have defined sides since this is like the sides of our stitches, but we know that our squares are 4 stitches high. So I just try to do 4 in each square. So I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to insert through the first spot. I'm going to bring it through. I'm going to leave a bit of a tail, and then I'm going to insert again into the same spot, just to create a little knot here so that it is more secure. So that is our first stitch, and then you just insert your needle and you just go through each side, trying to line up the stitches the best you can. There might be a couple of tails here that'll get in your way at first. So that was 2. So this is 3. And I'm kind of snugly pulling as I go. And then now we're on 4. So again, make sure you try to keep those colors lined up. Now I'm going to start the next color. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're just going to continue to do the whip stitch all the way until you reach the end here. When I'm at my last stitch, I'm going to go ahead and do it one more time. And then I'm going to insert in the same exact spot again. But this time I'm going to leave a loop. And then I'm going to go through the loop to make a knot. As before you do that, make sure that your seam looks good, otherwise you might want to redo it. And now I'm just going to weave in my end through the seam here. So the shoulder is a bit easier because we have these stitches at the top, but I'm also just going to do a whip stitch for the shoulders. So I'm just going to insert through the first stitch. And then I'm just lining up each stitch as I do the whip stitch. So you'll repeat that across, and then you'll just do the same thing where you tie a knot at the end and then weave in through your seam. I'm about to go over the borders, and something I really wish I had just done instead was I did the borders in like sections, but I really wish I had just gone around and just bordered everything at once and then chained one at the corners. So when I go to do this ribbing here on the front panel, it looked really weird where I stopped because then I had this like border down here. So I really wish I had done the main border as one because I could have taken the ribbing down to that chain one spot. So that is what I would do, is I would do your ribbing until that chain one spot and just do all of your border together. So Isabelle's vest actually has another gingham pattern on the bottom, 2 additional green colors that are different from the ones that we're using. I'm personally not going to do that because I honestly had a hard enough time just finding 4 green colors that kind of went together. So for the bottom of mine, I'm just gonna do a row of single crochet around the bottom of the vest, and I'm just gonna use the main color. And as we are going around, if you have any tail ends on the bottom, you can just weave those in as you go. So right now I am starting on the bottom of the left panel, and this is the right side of the vest, so the right side is facing me. I'm gonna bring in our main color, chain 1. I'm going to take the starter tail with me to weave it in, and I'm just going to insert my single crochet. Yeah, so you're just putting a single crochet into every stitch along the bottom, and it should be pretty easy since we worked into the back bump on the first row. So we'll have these clear stitches the whole way around. So go ahead and make that bottom border. After completing your bottom border, now we are going to border a few other spots just to make this look a little bit cleaner and also to make it easier to work our ribbing. You can skip this step if you want. I just personally prefer to work my ribbing into stitches instead of the side stitches. I worked single crochet up my panels, and I'm just showing you this side right here that I'm about to finish. Just like we did when we were sewing our pieces together, we want to do 4 stitches per square. So you're just gonna try to fit 4 stitches into this area here, 2 on each side. You can see how these are kind of split here, so I try to do 1, 2, and then 1, 2. I'll just show you how that looks real quick. And you can just grab any part of the stitch that you can get. It doesn't have to be anything specific since we're just working into the side. There's not going to be like a clear area. And then for the side panels, when we get down to our border here, I want to put 1 more stitch in the side of that border. So I'm just kind of grabbing a piece right there. And then that is good. So then I'm going to chain 1 and fasten off. For the borders, and I can't remember in editing what I told you to do, but just in case, When I was doing the border, I had mentioned that in each corner, I inserted either an extra stitch or two. I did an increase in the corners and also on the neckline, like right here. I ended up undoing those and just doing one stitch instead. However, I do believe I kept the increasing right here on the neckline, and that's just on the border, not on the ribbing. After the side panel, then I'm going to work on the neckline here. And when you're working into the neckline, it's the same exact thing. When you get to the slants here, this should be 4 stitches because this was still 4 stitches in a row here. Anytime you get to like a corner point like this right here, I'm probably going to increase. So I'm going to put 2 stitches into those spots. And anywhere you're working, just remember how many stitches you had in your square, and that's how many stitches you'll put, and that will make it look nice. When you are doing your buttons, something I really regret not adding was a slit right here on the top of the neckline ribbing, because it really needed an extra button right here to hold this top part. I had to add this, and I just ended up adding a loop here to grab it. So it's not perfect, but it does work. I also super messed it up, and I had put this originally on the wrong side. I put it here, and then I had to get it off, and then I accidentally cut my ribbing, which was very traumatic. But I think I fixed it. I mean, hopefully it will stay. But yeah, it's a little bit messed up right there now, but that is why. So make sure you put a slit also right here. So it's on the same panel where you're making your other slits. And then just add another button up here. I just wanted to add like a smaller button here because I didn't want one of the big buttons up here. I do wish I had like a see-through button, but this is still looks cute. Now we're going to begin our ribbing, and the first thing you want to do is place out your buttons and decide where you want them to be. I don't have my buttons just yet, so I just used something similar in size. So I basically went by the squares, so I put my first button I wanted in the square that I wanted it to be, and then I found where I wanted my last button to be, and then I placed this button in the middle. And then you want to place stitch markers across from those areas. So just line up your squares and then just place stitch markers near them, because that is where you're going to put the buttonholes when you do the ribbing. So I did the left side's ribbing first, just so I could see what it was looking like, and I could figure out how many stitches I wanted and everything. And I also tested my buttonhole length. I'm a perfectionist, so I wanted my buttons to be centered. Whatever my buttonhole's length was, I wanted to make sure that I would have an even amount of stitches. So for my holes, it's going to be 2 chains. So I ended up doing 10 stitches in length. That way I can have my button be exactly in the middle. And then when I was done with the ribbing on this side, I also marked where the buttons are actually going to sew onto. To make sure that both sides are equal, after you place the stitches on one side, I counted my stitches and made sure that I did the exact same number on the other side. And now I will show you how to make the ribbing and how to make the buttonholes. For my ribbing, I am working into the back loop. That leaves this nice line that I have right here. When I'm doing my right panel, I'm attaching down at the bottom, but when I did the left panel, I started up here at the top. So on this row, I'm just going to be working into these back loops here, and I'm going to leave the front loop. So I'm going to attach to the first stitch, and I'm just going to attach into the back loop. And the chain one, when I attach, I'm just going to consider that to be my first chain. It's up to you what length you want your ribbing to be. So for mine, I did 10 chains, and you may have to do some testing and just see what you like. I have also sized down to a 3.25 mm hook for the ribbing. So I'm going to chain 10. Now I'm going to chain 1, and that's going to be my turning chain. It does not count as a stitch. I'm going to begin in the second chain from the hook. So in the first row, I like to work into the back bump. So skip a chain, and then starting in the second chain in the back bump, you will just create a single crochet, and then you will have 10 single crochets down into each back bump. In the next stitch into the back loop only, I am going to do a slip stitch. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to do one more slip stitch into the back loop. And then I'm going to turn. We are going to skip the 2 slip stitches, and then we are going to begin to make single crochets into the back loop only of this row. Since we are turned this way, these right here, these are the back loops. So skipping the 2 slip stitches, I'm going to start in my first stitch, and I'm just going to make 10 single crochets in each back loop. I always like to count my ribbing. I pretty much count it the entire way because it is easy to miss stitches, and you want to make sure that you keep all of the same amount of stitches, and that will keep your ribbing nice and straight. So when we get to the top of this, we're going to chain 1, and then we are going to turn. So now we are working into the back loops on this side. So that is these stitches right here. So go ahead and create. I'm going to do 10 single crochets, just like I have been, into each back loop. And now we do our 2 slip stitches. So 1 slip stitch into the next stitch, and then another slip stitch into the next one. You're just going to repeat what we did in row 2 and 3 until you get to the end. Let's go through that together one more time just so you can see the repeating pattern. After I did my 2 slip stitches, I'm going to turn, and then I am skipping the 2 slip stitches, and then into the back loop only, I will do 10 single crochets. And then when you get to the top, you're going to chain 1 and turn. And then in these back loops only, make sure you're skipping the chain 1. We will make 10 single crochets. I'm keeping a very loose tension when I'm working on ribbing, because if you go too tight, it can get really hard to work into the chains. So make sure you keep your tension loose. If you're having trouble keeping your tension loose, then just try to size your hook up. And now I will slip stitch the next 2 stitches, just like we did before. So you're going to keep repeating that until you finish your ribbing. And then when I get to my first button, I will show you how to do that. So I just slip stitch into one of my stitch marker spots where I'm going to be making my first buttonhole. So we are going to just at first work this like normal until we get where we want our hole to be. So skip the 2 slip stitches just like before. And then I like to do an even amount of single crochets in between my hole. So for me, that is going to be 4 stitches. And now I'm at the middle of my ribbing. So I am going to chain 2 because that is going to be how big my buttonhole is. And then over here, I'm going to skip 2 stitches. So however many you chain, you will skip that many stitches. And then I will make my remaining 4 single crochet. So including the chain, you should still have the same amount of stitches. So I still have 10 stitches. And then just to get a really good idea of how this is going to fit, let's go ahead and do the next row real quick. So chain 1 and then create again your 10 single crochets. And when I get to the chains, I'm just going to treat them exactly like the other stitches. So I will work into the back loop only of those chains. So now I have a hole here for my button. And to test this out, unfortunately I don't have my button, but I grabbed this, which is going to be similar diameter to what my button's going to be. And I'm just going to slide it through the hole and make sure that it's going through it. So it's pretty tight. So this kind of stays when I do this, which is what I want, but I can get it through the hole. So you don't want this hole to be too loose or it won't really grab onto your button very well, and you don't want it to be too tight. So for me, for a 1-inch diameter button, 2 chains was the perfect amount for that. And now we will just continue on. We will do our ribbing as normal, and then every time you get to a buttonhole, you will just do your chains and leave a hole like that. After you are done with the ribbing on your front panels, we are going to do the ribbing around the neckline. I'm going to connect into the ribbing that is on top right here. I'm going to start here with my ribbing, and I'm just going to work it all the way around until we get to here. So I'm going to connect my yarn. And right here, I am working into both loops at the end of this ribbing. Now I'm going to start creating my chains for whatever length I want my top ribbing to be. I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to start with 5. I definitely don't want it to be as long as the front panels because the front panels is really long. Make sure you're inserting into the first stitch because it looks like I accidentally started on the second. I probably want mine to be maybe about 1 inch. 5 should be good, but I'm going to go ahead and experiment with that. You're going to do your ribbing exactly the same way that I showed you how to do it on the front panel. So when I was doing my ribbing around the neckline, it was really starting to bunch up too much. So if you have the same problem as I did with that, what I did was I ended up just skipping a few stitches in random spots, and especially I skipped a few stitches when I went around the corners here and in the back here. And the way that I did that, instead of doing 2 slit stitches when you come down from the ribbing, instead you do 3 slit stitches. And so you'll just do, 1 stitch, 1 stitch, and then you'll go into the next stitch and do a 3rd slit stitch. You'll turn your work, and then you'll just skip all 3 stitches instead of the 2, and then you'll just continue to do your ribbing as normal. And that is how you skip stitches when you're doing that. And that worked out a lot better, and now this lays nice and flat for me. So I would just do it, like I said, I mainly would do it around corners because it would just bunch up way too much in the corners for me. And I would also do it like in random spots back here and stuff too, just when it felt like it was getting too crowded. I didn't really do anything precise. It was very random, and I just went by if it was bunching up or not. I'm not sure if I mentioned this. When you finish your ribbing, by the way, you can either finish at the bottom or the top. It really doesn't matter, especially when you're doing the ribbing and it just stops here. You can stop wherever you would like. I personally stopped on the top. So for my armholes, I went around and I just did a single crochet boarding, just like I did in the other spots. When you get onto the side and you're working up the sides of the stitches, just remember that it's 4 stitches per square. Now this next step I'm going to do a round 2, and you don't have to do this. If your vest is fitting really nicely and you're happy with the way that your armholes are fitting, then you don't need to do this step. For me, my armholes were fitting really awkwardly. I think they're just too big. So what I did on round 2 is I'm going to alternate between doing single crochet and decrease. And I just repeat that all the way around. And I only work into the back loop. So I'll just show you real quick how I do that. So after completing your border on round 1, you'll slit stitch to the first single crochet, chain 1, and then I'm just working into the back loop, making a single crochet. And then I'm going to do a decrease in the next 2 stitches, just like that. And then I'm literally just alternating. Now I'm doing a single crochet, and then I'm doing a decrease. So just repeat that all the way around. If yours is too big like mine is, or even if yours is just like a little bit too big and you want it just toned down a little bit, you could even just do some decreases in just like the corners or just in a few spots. You don't have to do it every other stitch. Mine are definitely way too big, so the decreasing did help mine. So like I mentioned at the beginning of my border part, that I had wished I had just made a border just going all the way around while it was like connected instead of doing it in sections. So because I did that, the bottom right here looks just really strange to me, and I mean I should have just brought my ribbing down to here in the side of this and it probably would have looked better. So I am putting a little border at the bottom with this color here, and I think it's just going to make everything look a lot neater, and this part will look a lot more connected. And honestly, I want this at the bottom anyways. Isabelle kind of has like a darker border at the bottom. It's not the same color as the ribbing. Again, you know, I didn't want to buy another 2 colors, and so we're just gonna make it the same color as the ribbing, and I still think it'll look fine, but I just think it'll look really nice on the bottom here. This is just driving me crazy, so it should fix that issue there. All I did was I connected my yarn to the top of the ribbing here on the side, and then I started working across. I'm just doing a length of 3 chains for this ribbing. I just want it to be pretty small. And when I get to this part here, I am going to work into the back loops and leave a border here. All right, now we're making the front pockets, and they are very simple. You're just gonna create a slip knot, and I am using my 4.0 mm hook again. I'm using the same hook size that I used on the vest. That way, when I go to sew these on, I can align them with the other stitches very easily. So I'm not going to demonstrate too much of these because they are very simple. All we're going to do is make a chain of 14 in the second chain from the hook. You're just going to work 14 single crochets into each back bump. For row 2, you're going to just make 14 single crochet. So you'll make just a single crochet in every stitch. And for my rows, I do chain 1 and turn for each row. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the first 2 rows, and then I will come back for the last 2. I'm about to start round 3. So for round 3, we are going to turn, and we are just going to work 1 decrease at the beginning of the row, and then I'm going to work 10 single crochet, and then I'm going to work another decrease at the end of the row. And this is to give us like a nice curve on the bottom of the pocket. And then on round 4, you're gonna do the same exact thing where you'll decrease in the beginning of the row and at the end of the row. And so I will see you at the end of round 4. Now I'm at the end of round 4, and I am just going to chain 1, and I'm going to fasten off. Now I'm going to make a little border around just this edge here, the bottom, and then on the other side. And this is just going to give it a little bit of a cleaner look than this right here. So to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side here. I'm going to insert into the side of the stitch, and I'm going to connect my yarn, chain 1, and then work a single crochet into that stitch. And then you'll work a single crochet into each side of the stitch, so we'll have 4 on the side. And then we're going to work across each stitch on the top, which should be 10 single crochets. And then when I get to this side, I'm going to do another 4 single crochets. Okay, so it looks like this. It's okay if it's a little bit curly because when we sew it on, it will help stretch that out. So I'm not going to chain 1, but I am going to cut my yarn. And then I'm just going to bring this into the back. And then I will just tie a knot on the back of this so that you don't see it on the front. After that, you are going to sew this on. I'm sewing mine on to the 6th row. And when I say row, it's not really the 6th row. It's the 6th square. So technically, I am sewing it onto my 24th row here. And I'm going to make sure to keep it even on both sides. So I'm going to just start my sewing on one of the squares here. And since my pocket is 14 stitches, so it's going to be 3.5 squares across that I will sew it into. So just make sure you start on the same side on each one. So on the other side, I started right here. So that's where I'm going to start here. And when I sewed this on, the way I sewed it on was I did 2 stitches on the side, and then I went across, and then I did 2 stitches. And it just leaves it a little bit of like a loose flap like this. So when you sew it on, just make sure you just follow your stitches, because since we use the same hook, it should be the same size. I'm not going to demonstrate how to sew on the pockets or how to sew on the buttons, because to be quite honest, I am running out of time. I need to get this done today because I have a costume party to go to tomorrow, and I want to wear this dress. I'm not going to show you how to sew it on, but it is very simple. So you'll sew these on, and then I am going to attach my buttons. These are what my buttons look like. They kind of have like a cloth covering on them. And I just thought that this would suit this vest really well, and it just kind of feels like it would match Isabelle's vibe. Okay, so I actually don't know what this back thingy is called. I'll have to look it up. It's really simple. You are just going to chain 25, and then you will skip 1 chain and then work in the second chain from the hook, 24 single crochet into the back bump. And you're just going to do 6 rows of single crochet. And then when you're done, you'll just fasten off and weave in your ends. And then to get this connected here, I left it so it's like kind of like a handle almost. I sewed on the buttons first. I had to use like a sewing thread for these because the hole in the back is really small, so I could only fit like a really small needle through it. And then using my main color, I sewed this part to the back. I have mine going across 6 squares, and then I just attached it to the 6th square on each side. Thank you all so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!